All right, I think we're live, guys. Hey, what's up? Christine Seal here, the High Level Queen, and I'm super excited to bring a special guest to you guys today. If you guys can hear me, put a 1 in the chat, and we're gonna get started. I want to make sure that, I always like to check real quick just to make sure everything's showing to everybody. Here we go. Come on, computer. Are you guys excited? Because we're going to learn about Clickup and we're going to master Clickup today. How could you not be excited about that? I'm excited about that because I need to master Clickup. Okay. Let's see if I can bring her on here. Layla. Hey, girl.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining us, guys. So Layla is a operations expert who specializes in Clickup. And everyone has been asking me for this, Layla.
No.
And I'm like, I need to bring someone on here who's way better at this than I am to show you guys how to turn a hot mess into something awesome and amazing that you can actually use. So,
pressure, right? We're going to master Clickup in a whole, in 1 hour or less. So
yeah. So I hope you guys are ready. And before I go, is this automatically being recorded?
Yes.
Okay, thank God. Okay. Layla, if you're ready and the crowd is ready, we're going to take it away. You guys ready?
I'm ready. So I'll vouch for that.
Show us some likes and hearts, guys. Come on. All right. I'll let you take it away.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Christine.
Sorry.
It's okay. You can present it. I'll throw a curveball on you.
There we go. Okay.
Wow. There we go. We're here. Well, hello. Christine really didn't leave the screen because now she's still on it. So you can see her smiling face here. Thanks so much for, I know right now there's 4 of us. Thanks so much for having me on here. So we're going to be talking about how to fix a hot mess using Clickup. But I want to be clear that even though I'm a Clickup geek, just like Christine is a Go High Level geek, the stuff I'm going to be talking about today is going to transfer. So these lessons are actually, I think, Christine can correct me if I'm wrong, but they'll apply very well to any system, including Go High Level. Any system that you're using for your business can be helped by the processes I'm going to show you today. So just to recap, I'm sorry, Christine, I cut your face off now, but what we're going to be covering today is a visual exercise to reduce documentation and overwhelm, a 3-step process for building processes, and hopefully a whole lot of Q&A. I was telling Christine before we went on, I was like, I'm not really good with just long silence. And for those of you who are joining us here live, I would appreciate you breaking up this silence by commenting, telling us who is here, telling us what you're working on. Christine's like, same way?
Yes.
Absolutely. So I guess just a question to kick off everybody. Is everyone here using Clickup? Christine, maybe you know that already.
I think we have a good mix. I think we have some Clickup. I think we have some Trello. I think we have some Asana in the house. Guys, let us know in the comments what tool you are using and why you are interested in switching to Clickup. Because if you're watching this, obviously you're interested in switching.
Yeah. And that goes for task management tool, as well as if you have a place that you're putting your processes. So if you have your work instructions in Process Street or Notion, tell me both of those, because I think that'll help us we'll piece it together what everyone's doing here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Awesome. So we have people working on brand awareness, a bunch of folks coming in. Awesome. Well, I'm just going to start with the basics, I think, and get some common language established. And then we're going to dig into how to apply all this stuff to Clickup and so on. We've got some people using Clickup, it looks like. Awesome. Facebook user. It's very anonymous until you give StreamYard permission to see your name, but I like the ominous Facebook user.
Sorry, I literally.
It's not you. It's Facebook users.
Okay.
Nish just started using Clickup. Awesome. Teamwork. Great. I love this. Okay. So no matter what you're using, what we're going to talk about today will apply. And to get us started, let's just talk about what hot mess is and how we can get away from it. So to just define hot mess, which isn't really related to this stuff on the page, but a hot mess is basically when you are winging your way through business. You are kind of inventing your processes as you go, and you haven't yet done the steps that I'm going to talk about here to actually define your business processes. No matter what tool you have, what technology you have, how big your team is, if you've never written down how your work happens, you're probably winging it, or you're just running your business off of your memory. And both of those situations can be a bit unsustainable, right? Like they can be a bit challenging to go on vacation or to take a week off or to hire a new person if everything's in your head. So the first step to leave hot mess land and get into organized business instruction manual land is actually going through the process for processes. Jen, I have to ask, Christine, like, do you see this with Go High Level? Are people, you know what I mean? Is this the same puzzle for you?
Oh yeah, totally. I think a lot of people just like to get in there and start going without mapping everything out. It's super important to do this.
Yeah, because I find, and I have the sense that High Level is the same way. When you're in the tool, you're just in these menus and settings and more settings. And it's so easy to lose track of why we're setting this up and what the point of it is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
absolutely.
yeah, we want to start with the mapping step. And actually I can show you here on the screen just a little bit what that mapping looks like. And I'm going to talk about how we can translate this map, which is basically just explaining what you need to do, into the business instruction manual, which ultimately keeps you from ever being a hot mess again, hopefully. So to map a process, we need to start by defining the start, stop, and steps. I like catchy phrases, so you're going to hear a lot of them today, but start, stop, and step is the first one I want you to have in your brain. Write it down on your notes if you're taking notes today. And what this looks like is probably using a tool as simple as the one that I'm using right now, which is Whimsical, and just mapping out a process. You can see one right here. We'll just, I won't zoom in too much, but you can basically understand that it's a flow chart. And to build this flow chart, I want you to figure out, where does a process start and where does it stop? Which sounds really simple. I know Christine came onto my channel just, I think it was last week. Oh my gosh, time is flying. And you were talking about onboarding process.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And where do you have a start and stop for that? Like, where do you define onboarding as beginning and ending?
Yeah, definitely. So we basically cover everything from when the lead comes in to they pay, and then their journey as a client with you, and then retention.
Mm-hmm. So each of those pieces in this application, I would treat each of those, which sounds like what you're doing, as their own kind of piece of the puzzle. Mm-hmm. And the fun thing about processes is when we have one figured out, it feeds into the next. So if you're less of a hot mess with onboarding by doing what Christine says and automating it, then your initial, first month of client services is going to be smoother, which means your retention is going to be smoother. And it all it's cumulative, which is a nice thing to have. So that way you can really improve your business one little piece at a time.
Right.
So define the start, stop, and steps. Now, I talked about start and stop. Let's hit on steps here. And I realize I'm probably talking fast because I'm so excited to be on here. So let me slow down a second. Steps are just the key milestones in the journey from start to stop. If you were, running around a track, which I would never do because I have no physical fitness abilities, but imagine you're running around a track and there's those kind of lines, which I should know what they're called, but I don't. The lines to mark your progress around the track. Someone has to be in field here, so please tell me what those are called. But those are what I want you to think of when it comes to steps. So I actually have an example SOP here from ClickUp, and I'm just going to zoom in here a little bit. Hopefully you can see that. Is that mostly clear? Clear enough, we'll call it. So I have the title of the SOP. This is one tiny process we have in our business, which is taking our weekly live calls for our community, polishing them up a bit, and then uploading them. And in this process, we start off with the purpose, which is basically saying, what is the start, stop, and steps? In summary, what is the point of doing this? Because we don't want to do a process just to do a process. We have a few other pieces of information here at the top, which I know is hard to see, so I'll just read them off. It's the manager of the process who's maintaining the SOP and doing the task, the SME or subject matter expert who you can ask if you need help with this process, and then related documents or related SOPs. Then we have the purpose, like I talked about, and then we have the process, which again, I'm showing you kind of the end result, but I want you to feel like you're making progress towards this. So this is our goal. We have inputs needed, which is our start. Below here, which I kind of cut off in my screenshot here, is outputs, which is your stop. And these little skimmable headers, which a little bit small to see, but you can see hopefully step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, the steps of us taking things out of air meat. These are our steps. And While what I have here are actually expanding toggles, meaning if I click on step 1, it'll show a little bit more information. To really start mapping a process, it can be as simple as making skimmable headers. I just want to pause here if that makes sense. If you guys are in the audience and you're listening to this, does that make sense to you? The idea of skimmable steps? Maybe?
Give us some feedback, guys.
Yeah, let us know. Skimmable steps. Yes, no, confusion. I know in the marketing world, at least, we've started to address, I'm not marketing. So like Christine, you can chime in on this probably more, but I'm not a true marketer, but I do know I have a small attention span. And marketing has been shifting to be more and more bite-sized, skimmable. And I feel like with SOPs, we're still stuck with this whole feeling that SOPs are these long instruction manuals,
right?
Which no one wants to create and no one, including your team, wants to read,
Absolutely.
Even if they need to.
Right. Yeah. And we do the same thing. We have short SOPs and you can link them together in mentions, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. And I think linking together, keeping them short. One rule of thumb that I'll share here, and okay, I'm getting some feedback that this looks like it's making sense. Awesome. One piece of feedback I'll share here is just that if your process is more than 8 steps, I mean, 10, you're probably okay, but 8 is our really max that we want to have. If your process is more than 8 steps, it's probably multiple processes and you're kind of bleeding them together in your mind. Pretty much any process that you will map for your business, which we're going to talk through a bunch of examples of what those processes might be, pretty much every one should be 8 steps or less, because that's about what we can keep in our brain at one time. Or maybe it's just my brain with a short attention span. But yeah, is that about the same what you do?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, short, simple, sweet, and skimmable.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Awesome. So once we start mapping a process, we're going to then equip a process. This is our steps to go from hot mess to organize on any process in any tool. The equipment step is where we finally introduce the technology, whether that's high level, whether that's ClickUp, whether that's Notion, whether that's Airtable, whatever it is. The equipment step is talking about templates, technology, and team. And you might be creating all of these things. You might just be creating one of these things. But I like to do them in this order because ultimately your team's time is the most precious. And your team's attention and energy is something you want to protect. So when it comes to completing a process, you've mapped out how you want it to happen. The very first thing we want to do is figure out if there's anything we can template right here to make it easier to do. The reason we do templates first is because whether we're delegating to technology or delegating to our team, we need a template to tell that delegatee what to do. Our technology needs our instructions and our team needs our instructions. I'm just going to scroll down a second here and show you a little example of what this might look like inside ClickUp. So this is a ClickUp document. Now you've probably gathered by now, we're using a lot of documents for this stuff. This is where we're housing our equipment at my own team. In here, we have document pages to keep track of reference information. This information here is templates, yes, but it's also team templates, meaning, or how do I explain this? It's instructions for the humans that we're working with. If I actually zoom in on this just a little bit, and again, I apologize, it gets kind of small on these ones. Basically, we have every single technology we use and some instructions for how to use it inside this document. But for example, Canva. If I were to go into the Canva one, it'll say how to create a Canva account, how to use our templates. But we're not taking the time to put all of our colors inside this document. Instead, we've taken that template, which is our color scheme, and we've put it directly into Canva. We've, I guess if you can call it, automated that by delegating it to a technology. We don't have to remember it anymore, and neither does the team. Does that make sense, hopefully?
That's awesome.
It's like a helpful reframe, because I think we always think of delegation as to a human, but it's a lot cheaper to delegate to something like high level or...
Yeah, absolutely.
So delegate to whatever is going to help your business actually make sense. Do we have any questions about that piece? Feel free to chime in using the, yes, exactly, the chat. Thank you so much. So we've got equipment there, and from there we have try. Oh, question here. Do you document a process before you start it or wait until you know it works? Oh, okay. Facebook user. You are good. You are anonymous because I would be shouting you out here. So personally, and you can tell me, like, I'd love to hear, Christine, like if you have a different flow for this, but the way I like to do it is always go through this process as fast as possible and then loop.
That makes sense.
Is high level like iteration friendly? Like you can edit things as you go?
I mean, depends on what it is. They don't do versioning on like their campaigns and stuff like that. So you have to be really careful with if you make any changes that you're like copying it before you do it. Just so you're not like, oh, what was in that one campaign? I don't remember. But yeah, I totally agree with that. You have to, but you also have to know it works, right? I mean, that's why it's so important to write it as you're going.
Yeah. Yeah. And I would say, and I don't know quite like I'm not a high level guru, but I will say like with ClickUp, there's automations. You can automate things or Zapier or Integromat or whatever else you might use. I always like to tell people to do the map and equip step. And the first time you try it, don't automate anything. I mean, obviously campaigns are a little different. You have to automate those. But I like to do this try the first time around as simply as possible, as a minimum viable process. See, like pun there. So if you can do it manually, do it manually. And then immediately, you'll probably have to change something. So I see a lot of people use ClickUp templates right off the bat. They have tons of automations going, and it's automating a crappy process that is producing a lot of notifications, is not making sense for the team, and is causing more harm than good. So to the original question about do you perfect the process before you actually automate it or equip it, do not try to perfect your process. You'll be paralyzed, and it'll be years until you actually start trying it. And I really believe in this 3-step approach. And most of the time when I visualize it, you can actually see someone above here. I do have like a little repeat sign because this looks like a line, but really it's a circle. And as soon as you're done trying, you are going to go right back to mapping again. Oh, look, that worked really well. Thank you, Whimsical. So this is a loop, and I would encourage you to go through the loop as quickly as you can and track that health as you go.
That's awesome.
Does that make sense? Do we need any more explanation about how to go from nothing to something in terms of documentation? What do you think, Christine? I don't know if there's...
I mean, I think that's a good start. Something I did in the beginning was I had my team write what they were doing. So my team wrote the SOPs, and then I looked at it and I was like, okay, here's our gaps. We have these gaps and we need to fix these gaps. And then I immediately knew where I was being unclear as a boss or a manager, an owner. And that helped me a ton.
Did you sneak a peek at my Whimsical while I was... I actually... No, you're like, that was exactly what I had a little note here, which I forgot to mention, but apparently you read my mind right here.
Nice.
So I don't know, we were on the same wavelength there, because a lot of people think that this equipment step is like hunker down. We're rebuilding the business. Only the business owner can write anything. And your experience was the opposite.
Yeah. When I was trying to do it in a vacuum, I was not getting good results.
Right. Because I almost think you know too much, or maybe there's a better way to phrase that.
You can't see the forest for the trees, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. In it.
I really like one. Coco can relate to using too much. Yeah. Many people have. That's the reason why that's why I talk about it here, because so many people have gone through this. Work with so many teams that use ClickUp, you start to like see the trends. But when it comes to having your team help, I think what Christine did is absolutely like, that's spot on, because having the first draft be done by someone who's not biased is going to give you really good results. I'll also suggest, and I put this video here just because this explains more about how you don't have to do it on your own. So if this is a new concept, maybe watch that. But one way that you can not do it on your own is when you're hiring somebody and maybe you have no documentation in place, they're new, you're trying to take things off of your plate. I often see people say, I can't hire because I don't have this documented. And while that's partially true, and hiring is a lot cheaper if you actually have things documented, when you're bringing somebody on and they're watching over your shoulder what you do, that is an opportunity for them to create documentation while watching you. It makes a documentation feel more like an interview than a brain dump. And I don't know about you guys, but brain dumping for me tends to give really inaccurate results versus when I'm actually doing it and someone is there asking clarifying questions like, why did you click on that? We can make a document that actually helps them do the job.
Mm-hmm.
So, Kristen, as you're hiring that next person, that's probably what's going to.
I know. Yeah. We were just talking about that before we started the live stream. So super awesome.
Yeah. So that is map, equip, try. This is kind of basic, but I wanted to just make sure we had that shared language before we move on. I feel like the natural question is, once we realize that, hey, this is all I have to do to turn any process in my business from chaos to organized, is do these steps and have a place to put them, of which I'm a little bit biased. I prefer to use ClickUp. I feel like the next question is, where do I start documenting? Where do I start putting these things, and what processes do I work on first? So for those of you who are here in the comments, I would love to hear, what process did you document first that you're like, okay, this is important? I feel like Christine, I'm guessing Christine's is probably onboarding, but I'm not sure. Like, are there certain processes that were your top priority?
I looked at where I was spending the most time every week and what I was doing manually that was completely ineffective. And I just did like a brain dump. I call it a brain dump, but I literally just, every time I found myself doing a repeatable task, I quickly shot a Loom video. And that's how I got started. I'm like, when I was doing my own outreach, for example, when I was doing the cold outreach, which thank God I don't have to do anymore. Thank you guys. Love you very much. I would shoot a Loom video on, how to get the data feed. And then I shot a Loom video on how to compose the email. And then I shot a video on how to send the email. And over time, you're just taking little 2 minutes here and there, but you guys are going to save yourselves like months and years of work just by spending 2 minutes on a quick Loom video here and there.
Absolutely. And when that person joins, who's going to take over that outbound, whatever, they have those videos. It's the same as looking over your shoulder. And they can take it further, because long-term skimmable, Loom can get hard to skim. Not any of you guys who watch YouTube, obviously, but some people don't watch videos fully. They start them and then they're like, oh, this is too long. So translating those into eventually outlines or bullet points, I mean, that's really how useful it is.
Yeah. And that was what I was missing, was ClickUp in the beginning. Like, I started with the Loom, and then I had like a Google Doc and all my stuff was in there. And I'm like, I need a better system because I wanted to be able to scale. So that's when I got into ClickUp, and I started following you because I'm like, I'm in over my head here, No,
ClickUp is complicated. No.
Oh my God, I know. And I saw your video today that you posted, and I was like, oh my God, I have to do this like right now. But
the meeting agendas.
Yeah, for my community.
The course management one. Yeah, there's a lot. I feel like there's a lot of little things. And I think documentation, just like building out, ultimately ClickUp is just building out the tech and putting some templates in it. It needs to be cumulative. You can't just wait to start your business until you have everything documented. Right. I don't think there's enough urgency then. You're like, oh, I'll just document everything. No, it has to be organic, and it has to happen it has to be updated as things change.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. If you're in analysis paralysis, you're not going to make any money, and then you're not going to be able to fund your business.
Yeah. I mean, well said. I feel like you have to do the process wrong to have the motivation to fix the process. And from the armchair, every process looks perfect for the most part. Okay, that's actually not true, but most processes look better than they actually are until you try to do them. But so I guess the next thing is Christine's talking about all these processes that she's getting together in ClickUp. She's got all this stuff organized, and the distance from yourself to where Christine is or to where I am may feel really far. And so I really like to focus on like the next step you can do to get yourself on like the treadmill. No, not treadmill. Treadmill's bad. On the steps. We'll say steps is the metaphor. To become a little bit more process oriented. So yeah. Oh, sorry. I think I'm hearing myself. My bad. So the thing that you want to figure out first is what your processes are. And I'm just going to warn you guys, like this is a screenshot / noteworthy moment because I've never shared this outside of clicking up our membership. But oh, she goes full screen. She's like, oh, we got to see this. You need to figure out what your membership is and your membership, my goodness, your processes are. You got to figure out what you do. And the first step to make that happen is to stop thinking about your business like this. And I really am hoping right now that Christine does not teach an org chart in her lessons because then I'm totally contradicting this. No, okay, good. I'm just going on the fly here. This is how most of us think about our agency, our business, the way we do work, who we're going to hire next. And when you're a one-person business, this can look kind of boring because it's just one person and it's not a helpful tool. What I'd like you to think about instead is this guy. So I took the same exact org chart, more or less, and rather than thinking about it as people and fancy schmancy job titles, which I don't think really matters, especially for small business. I'm not sure the size of businesses we have here, but for small business, even if you are a one-person business, you have these responsibilities. And hopefully this is making sense. Rather than having VP of sales, I have generate revenue here. Because rather than putting fancy schmancy job titles, I am breaking down my business, which is ultimately here to make a profit, into the processes I need to do to make that happen. Okay. That makes sense? Like process org chart, not human org chart.
I love this.
Yeah.
You guys like this? Give us some love. Give us some hearts. Give us some hashtag Layla. Go Layla. Okay.
Hashtag go Layla. We're going to get it trending, right? Behind here, you can see that I have a little box for each part of your business. And when you're one person, it's probably going to look a lot like, and this is going to get really funky as I do this, but it's going to be one big old box that says CEO is in charge of everything. But as the business grows, the other boxes are going to change. You see, I have freelance in here. Maybe this is going to grow in size over time, or it's going to be, I know, right? So Coca, that's exactly how I felt when I invented this process for myself, and it's really done wonders. So I'm going to just sneak peek over, fast forward a little bit. Nish is okay. Nish, your question is exactly what I'm about to get to. No, that is the mistake that people make. So what you have, once you have a process org chart, which is something that a lot of methodologies teach in some way, I think I might have originally heard this from Scaling Up and kind of adapted it to my flowchart way of thinking because they have process responsibility charts. Kind of adapted that or the EOS model towards process responsibility here. Once you have this built, you are not translating everything into a space in a folder. Because just because something is equally important does not mean it needs to be equally structured in ClickUp. And this is the real thing that like we teach inside Clicking Up, the membership I run, is helping you translate your process org chart, which is ultimately your business as an organism, into ClickUp. Here, this one looks a little bit prettier because I got rid of the roles layer, but we have the same chart, more or less, I might have changed it a little bit, color-coded. And these color codes, I don't know if you can see that, it's a little bit small, space, folder, list, task, subtask, checklist, and so on, they coordinate with the ClickUp hierarchy. I'm just going to let that sink in for a moment. So to Nish's question about whether we create a space or folder for each of those, absolutely not. You'll see here, this is at the same level as deliver services, but for reasons that, for reasons of the ClickUp's logic, their hierarchy, we've made one a list and one a folder. Heck, we can even make one a space depending on how we organize things. If we go down a layer, you'll see that some of these ones below here become tasks. Some of these become lists. And if we continue to build this org chart out, because this is just an example, right? This isn't, a real business would have quite a few more processes than this. When we actually go down the whole org chart, we start to see how subtasks and checklists and documents can come into play inside this process org chart. I hope that makes sense because I did invent this exercise. So sometimes when you create something, you're like, it makes sense in my mind.
Give us some feedback, guys.
Yeah, please do. See if this is connecting for you. I did a whole video on the ClickUp hierarchy to explain this logic, but long story short, to go from knowing that this is a thing to knowing where it needs to go in the hierarchy, I use a decision tree for that. So do you use decision trees at all? Or do people know what that means here? Or
I do actually. So for our like high level build diagrams or our snapshots, we have decision trees.
Ooh. So if you're used to Christine's decision trees, I would imagine ours work very similarly in that they basically, I like to think of it as like those personality quizzes that you used to get in magazines, but back when we used to have paper magazines.
Cosmo, hello.
Right? Cosmo might not be this audience, but whatever it was. You have the Cosmo quizzes, right? And it asks,
you just took me back to when I was like 12 and reading Cosmo and not supposed to be reading Cosmo.
I mean, that is the amount of fun that I wish people would have using Clickup Hyerarchy decision trees.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
We're actually, I'm releasing a public decision tree quiz, but inside the membership, we actually have a bunch of decision trees because ultimately your first decision is where is it in the hierarchy? Your second decision is how do you structure it once you're at that level of the hierarchy? We kind of have a series of quizzes that, like the Cosmo quizzes, ask you, does this process involve multiple people? Yes or no? Does this process need automations available? Yes or no? And based on your answers, it helps you determine where it needs to go in the hierarchy because a lot of ClickUp consultants, of which I am one, we try to act like figuring out where things go in ClickUp is this magical thing that only we can figure out. And ultimately, ClickUp is programmed. It's a program designed by people who followed, hopefully, some logic. And if we can just reverse engineer their logic, we can make it make sense for anybody. So basically, we look at Make Profit, we answer the Cosmo quiz, if you will, and that tells us where this needs to go in our workspace. And yes, the results do vary based on your team size, based on your revenue, based on the complexity of your projects. A question I get a lot about this with ClickUp, which is why I made a whole ClickUp hierarchy video, which you guys can see, is I have an agency. What should my ClickUp look like? And you'll hear people say space per client, folder per client. If you post in the ClickUppers Facebook group or my Facebook group about ClickUp, it's just constantly people just prescribing what they like to other people. But ultimately, the decision of where it falls in the hierarchy is based on so many other factors, which is what our quizzes, that's really what they're designed to help you dissect. And what I love about decision trees, maybe you've done this with your Cosmo quizzes, is you can see why a certain logic became true. Because I answered this, it took me down this path. And this is just so much more empowering, I think, than consulting sometimes.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, so that is the secret, the ultra secret method here. Ooh, question. How do you differentiate lists from folders, etc.? I don't understand the question. Christine, do you understand? Maybe
I think she means when you're setting it up in ClickUp, how do you know whether or not to set up a list or a folder?
I would say look at your quiz result. Unfortunately, so when you go through the decision tree, it'll tell you list or folder. And when you create it, I mean, these are screenshots from ClickUp here. It's visually, when you click the plus, you can choose the dropdown, whether you want it to be a list or a folder. It's kind of hard for me to explain all the differences between them here, but I would just say the decision tree would tell you the result that is right for you. And I'm excited, Christine. I'm doing a little marketing for the first time almost since my business started, and besides YouTube. And we're creating a hierarchy quiz, like a quiz builder, which I've never done before. So I'm really excited, where it'll take the one decision tree and it'll turn it into like an interactive quiz thing.
Ooh.
Sounds like something like you would have. So I'm just mentioning it in case you like already do that and you're like, oh yeah.
That sounds awesome.
So Coco says it makes sense. Definitely starts with the decision tree. Exactly. Everything starts with the decision tree. Joe, I'm so glad you're getting value out of this. Awesome. All right. So once you decide what your processes are, you figure out where they need to go. We need to start working through the processes and turning this kind of thing. Like we've got all this, which is great, pretty colors, but we need to figure out how to actually turn this through the map prep try process or the map equip try. We need to move each one of these through that process. And how do we do that and which one do we do first is really what we need to figure out. So typically, just as a general rule, I like to start at the bottom and work my way up, which is a little bit backwards of what I think a lot of people will recommend. Most folks will recommend you start here and map your entire sales delivery process or your entire whatever else you have, your lead generation process. And while I think that's valuable, when we're at the step where we're trying to build processes, it's going to be so much less overwhelming to start with something very simple, like how do we collect testimonials or how do we upload the weekly review, which is what I was just showing you on my example. So that's kind of a general tip, but I'm going to give you a little bit more meat here too. So to figure out which process you want to do first, you want to do exactly what Christine said. Actually, I'm not sure if she said it on air or before we started, but finding urgency, which is basically find a reason to kick yourself in the butt to make those processes. I think what's funny about SOPs and being in this line of work, I hear this a lot from clients, nothing's important until it's a fire, right? Process documentation is never like the thing we want to do. So usually people come to me, or maybe they probably come to Christine when they've screwed up something really bad. Is that the same case for you? I'm kind of like just shopping for shop talk now.
So yeah, I think that's very accurate.
Tell me, is it easier to help someone set up Go High Level or High Level? I'm sorry, I keep calling it Go High Level. High Level before the hot mess or after?
Okay, let me start out by saying, you guys know I love you. Okay, I'm just gonna be honest. It's a lot easier to start from scratch. Because once the hot mess is already a hot mess, then you have to add time untangling it. Okay. For me, it's my chatbot. My chatbot is a hot mess. Okay. And it's because there's been like 4 different people in there creating things. We didn't have anything mapped out. And now I'm like having to like pay an expert to come and untangle everything. So I know I'm going to end up, spending more time fixing it in the long run, but it's okay. I mean, it's just part of life.
Yeah. I feel like it's like there's hot mess or warm mess, and then there's like dumpster fire. I'm typically okay with folks if they're in like the medium, like the warm mess stage. By the time it's hot mess or straight up dumpster fire, that's where it's so costly. It's so costly to unwind all of that because you're using it, you're in it. And so sometimes urgency hits you in the face, and other times we want to create it so we can catch the urgency before it becomes a dumpster fire, which I feel like is going to be my new thing now. Hot mess to dumpster fire.
Is your ClickUp a warm mess, a hot mess, or 2020?
Oh, please put that in the chat, please. And you can just say your processes in general. I don't mind if it's not in ClickUp, but what were the options? Hot mess,
warm mess, hot mess, or 2020, which is the dumpster fire.
I love that. Yeah, I would love to hear from folks. Or it could also be really good. It could be like, I don't know, what was a good year?
Yeah. Oh man. 2010.
2010. I feel like 2010 was, depends if you're in Wall Street. Okay, 2007.
Before the housing market crashed.
Exactly. Yeah, the economics major hat is coming on here. Warm fire. Okay. 2020 and a hot mess. This is the new scale. This is the poll we'll do on Facebook at some point after this.
Oh, and then can we have a nuclear, like a nuclear?
Oh my, isn't that still 2020? And
I probably.
Okay, so we got some warm messes. I mean, no matter where you're at, I think the important part is we're joking here, but you can get out of it, right? Just go back to the beginning sometimes and be willing to, there you go. Be willing to try, right? The reason I put that cycle and I said go fast and quick through the cycle as many times is the way to get out of a hot mess is not to fix everything at once. It's to take a step. And process building, which I was just talking to someone, Annie, if you're watching, hi. I was just talking to someone yesterday about this, and she was paralyzed to start building processes because she was afraid she was going to do it a little bit wrong or just incorrect, or it won't be good enough. And what is the whole thing where basically progress over perfection? I forget the exact quote. I'm going to butcher it here, but yeah, every process is a decision. And
I just say like imperfect action.
Yes. That's good. Imperfect action.
Yeah.
Every process it's cumulative of hundreds of decisions and hundreds of attempts. And like the process I just showed you with the weekly review, that started, I have it somewhere on here, that started months ago, all of this stuff. This that you're seeing here has been edited probably 1,000 times in the past 6 months. And I don't think 1,000 is really an exaggeration either. I spend most of my day as a manager, as a business owner, actually in my docs, improving our processes, which is to me, one of the best things I could possibly do. We're automating steps in our process. So don't be afraid to get out of the hot mess chair. It's possible. For those of you who want to prevent dumpster fire, let's talk a little bit about creating urgency. So finding urgency or creating urgency comes into 2 steps, or 2 categories: quick wins and long-term wins. Now, long-term wins doesn't really roll off the tongue. I'm struggling to find a better word here. So if you guys have one, please share. But quick wins is kind of from the agile idea of just doing something that doesn't take a lot of effort, but will rapidly improve your quality of life, your quality of work, your team, your productivity, your profitability, something like that. It has a really clear incentive, and it's not a lot of work to do it. Whereas long-term wins are things that you know are good for you, but they're not going to pay off immediately, and they might be a little bit more work to get done. So I'm going to give you some examples here. And as promised, I'm going to give you another analogy of sorts. So, and this I came up with as I was prepping for today. So if it doesn't make sense as I'm talking through it, I apologize. But I like to think of these created urgency in 3 categories. And I've themed them around an airport because, like I was telling Christine, I'm moving on Monday and I'm very excited to travel again. So arrival is the idea of something is coming. Departure, something is going. Delays is there's been problems here. And baggage just means that you are carrying extra load, or you're moving really slow, or you're trying to drag a big duffel bag all the way across a giant, JFK airport. And these are the 3 main categories, which if I was smart, I probably would have broke these into those 4 different categories. But these are the 4 categories of urgency you can create for yourself. So I'm giving you a bunch of examples here. One of them, which is a departure, this person is going to get fired. We know they are. They're doing a terrible job. That is urgency. That is going to give you immediate payoff to build systems around that person before they leave the team. Here's another one. This is an arrival. This job needs to be split so a new hire can help. This could also be considered a bit of a delay, meaning things are taking too long. There's a burden here. We could split this role in half, and we need to document the half we're going to split off so that new person can arrive. This one is more of a delay, or it might even be considered baggage, depending on how you think about it. This part of our business is just a hot mess. It's just really disorganized, and it's causing me stress. That stress is baggage. And the result of that stress is going to be delays, things getting missed, things slipping through the cracks. New hire is coming on Monday. Oh my gosh, that's quite the arrival. And I'm taking a vacation next week. Or in my case, you're moving cross country on Monday. Those kinds of things present quick opportunities and urgent demands to build processes, because all of these things are going to become substantially easier for each process that you build. Now, these kinds of opportunities don't come along very often, or as often as the other one I'm going to talk about, which is why long-term wins or kind of creating your own urgency can sometimes help here. So creating your own urgency might look like, we want a 3x revenue in the next year. We're going to do it. And the way we're going to do that is by hiring. And that's a longer term goal that is prompting short-term action. This would be great for someone who's maybe an EOS team and you're setting your rocks and your themes. That is a long-term win that can drive your processes and, again, help you prioritize. I should say the whole point of me telling you this stuff is not to, categorize the hot messes, but to give you a way to prioritize all of these processes we were talking about down here. Because if you try to document all of these today, you will make no progress because you will get 5% progress on all of them. And what I want you to do is pick one that you're very clear is the next one that you need to do, and to finish it all in one sitting. I generally recommend folks spend 20 minutes per sitting on an SOP. If it takes more than 20 minutes, you need to come back to it later. To make a start, stop, and the highlights, if that takes you more than 20 minutes, you probably aren't ready to document it at all yet, and you should go back to flowcharting. Is that, yeah, that's about what you teach as well?
I mean, not exactly, but I agree with you 100%. It should not take you 20 minutes because like especially if you're planning on hiring people from another country, maybe their English is a second language. Think about it. I mean, they're not going to understand it, you know? They're going to lose attention span and then they're not going to be able to understand it and you're going to end up with some hot mess and
And then we have to unwind it.
Mhm.
I like to do 20-minute sittings. Some people prefer 45-minute, but I like Pomodoro. Think about that. It's 27, 22. I forget what Pomodoro is exactly, like the time interval. But basically, it's the idea of on and off. So sit for 20 minutes, draft it, take a 10-minute break, or come back next week and do a second round. And each of those 20-minute increments, you go through the map prep try and you kind of work through a step of it each time. Not 3 hours per SOP. I've seen people do that where they just sit and they're like, I'm going to create one SOP this entire Saturday. And that's
in a vacuum too.
Yeah. Because when you're in that sitting, you just want to get out of it. And so you force yourself to say, that's good enough. But fresh energy helps a lot.
Absolutely.
So I'm going to go through a few other of the long-term wins, and then we can just straight up Q&A. So as Christine's probably already talked about, or we kind of mentioned at the beginning, put your questions about ClickUp, about processes in the chat, and we can answer those in a moment here. Other long-term wins might be, we'll hit capacity in 3 months at this rate. The short-term version of this would be, I'm turning away clients right now. But the long-term ways, we want to completely book out, and we want to increase that capacity so we never have to turn away clients. This is preventative. A common one that I have my clients come to me for is, I want to sell this business. I'm ready to, I'm done. I want to retire. I want to hire a CEO. I want to hire a president, and I want to step back. Or equally common these days is, I want to open a second location. I want to franchise. These are long-term goals that can give you some urgency right now to get going. A common one I think Christine mentioned earlier on is, I hate doing this. I hate doing this. And this could be a good reason to hire someone for your chatbot.
Yes, that's what I'm doing.
Is that kind of the logic behind it? Just hate it?
I hate it. Yeah, for sure. Like, it's monotonous, which is like the next one, I think, right?
Yep. And this is why I just outsource video editing, which we talked about last week on my stream. Is like, I love doing it, actually. I really enjoy video editing. I'm not good at it. And there's a time where I want to increase quality or I want my time back. And these are long-term objectives. And yeah, we could do better. If I hire a video editor, my video quality is going to go up, and maybe that'll help my YouTube channel perform. Or our chatbot will get back up quicker, or whatever it might be.
I'll stop spamming people random messages. Sorry, guys, by the way.
Oh, no. I haven't started to mess with that yet. It sounds like very fun tech, but very fickle.
Yes, and they keep changing. They keep changing it as well. So once you learn it, they change it.
I don't know of any other software that does that. ClickUp.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think. There's one other thing I want to say here. Just this, I need more time back one. Or I'm about to hire. Many of these, we think that we need to have the processes done in order to do. You're never going to get time back. And this is a quote from over at, oh my goodness, Michelle. I'm trying to remember the business name. I'm so sorry, Michelle. I will probably comment it below. But Michelle suggested at Faith Kiss Happy Hour, I believe, Speakeasy Collaborative, something like that. I so apologize, Michelle. But anyway, she suggested that when it comes to taking your time back, you can't just wait to get your time back. You have to declare it, stake a claim, put a flag in the ground, and take the time back so that way you can figure out how to never have that time taken again. I don't know if that makes sense as a reframe here, but that's why this is a really good one, is just to say, I'm not working Friday. I'm not working Friday. And that will force you to figure out on Thursday how to make that possible. Mm-hmm. This is a really good long-term win. Okay, so I think that's all I really have to cover here. I guess I'll do a little bit of like who I am, and then if you want to do questions, Christine, I'll defer to you on like timing. I don't want to run over.
No, it's okay. We have like 11 minutes, and then I got to go do office hours for my community. So,
woohoo! Those are always fun.
Yes.
Well, I will say, just like as an introduction for those of you who joined late, and just to say like who the heck I am. My name's Layla. I run Process Driven, and I help people learn how to use ClickUp the same way Christine helps people learn high level. And it sounds like we have so similar approaches. I don't know. I feel like we met through YouTube, and now we're just kind of geeking out in our respective technologies. And I will say that if you want to see the presentation Christine did on my channel, it's actually over at, I should put this. This is my YouTube channel. Please follow me if you like this kind of content. I do a lot of stuff on processes and a lot on ClickUp, obviously. Just to give you a bit about how I spend my time, I talk to cool people like Christine all the time. So you can watch this video 6 days ago to see all the goodness she shared. I'm also spending my time moving cross country, which I've mentioned here. And I'm also a dog mom. And finally, like how I make money is actually by teaching people ClickUp. I do training. I have a course, a membership just like Christine, not just like, similar to Christine. And this is kind of how we do it. We are releasing a mini course soon. And I don't want to like plug or anything, but just to say, like, if you're interested in like bite-sized information around this is how it's going right now, this is our main membership and this is our mini course. This is a behind the scenes of how I process charted the journey that we're going to take them through. You can actually sign up and get some info as to when we release that, and the hierarchy quiz, which is all related. So
that looks awesome.
Yeah, I think that's all the stuff I got for today. So I'll defer to you and we can do some Q&A.
All right. Nish. Hey, what's up? Nish just joined my program. So happy to have you here watching. Nish says, if you have multiple spaces, including personal, do you set up a view that shows you everything on one screen rather than having to jump to multiple spaces or lists?
Yes. I'm not supposed to give one-word answers. Yes, indeed. There are people who prefer not to do this. They prefer to have everything segmented, in which case, more power to you. The way I would do this, which you can actually see, I have a YouTube video talking through my personal productivity. It takes you through my ClickUp and my journey each day as to where I focus. I would create an everything view inside ClickUp. And in that everything view, pull in all of your stuff, group it by due date, and focus. I will say that just 2 weeks ago, ClickUp released a new home. So if you go to your home tab inside ClickUp, you'll actually see all of your stuff in one place regardless. But I still prefer a view to home just because you can customize the view more. But I hope that makes sense. So yes, I would definitely do that because you're still you. You're one person, no matter how many jobs or hats you're wearing.
Cool. All right. Hopefully that helps, Nish. We got another one. Joe says, is there a great way to have two strangers access the same client workflow?
Okay, Joe, why would you want two strangers working in the same client workflow? Are you talking like contractors who are like tag teaming a client? Like, or maybe Christine, do you know a little bit more what he's talking about here? No? Okay. Well, I'll do my best. And Joe, as the delay of the stream like hits you, see if you can add a little bit of more explanation here. If you saw back when I did the process org chart in the different colors, not every workflow is going to be in the same list. You might have a process in your business that stretches. I was just talking to an e-commerce company this morning and they make candles and they do all this amazing stuff, but there's phases to their project. And you have, the orders, you have the customer service requests, you have phases to how the project happens. And when those phases occur, okay, this makes more sense. Lead generator and sales rep, got it. What you need to determine for yourself is how close do you want those two people to be? There's a lot of benefits in making those two people not strangers. So there's continuity to the relationship because while we think of org charts this way, our customers travel across the org chart this way. And I'm crediting scaling up with that realization, scaling up framework. But going across the org chart will really help you think about your processes more clearly. And so having those people all involved in the same ClickUp list or same ClickUp task may be beneficial. If you want them to be strangers and stay strangers, the best way to do that in ClickUp is through permissions. And most often this is by having two separate lists. So your list is lead generation. Your second list is whatever the next one was, onboarding, maybe? I forget what you said. I think it was sales rep and then whatever. So make those two lists. And have the first few phases of the workflow, have that task card move through the lead generation list. And when it gets to the last stage, bump it to the next list where your sales rep takes over. So list one would be leads. List two would be onboarding. Have the task card, which represents the possible deal, move through those cards and move to a new list, therefore with different permissions. And your sales rep could take over from there while still having all of the history of that task card. I have a video about how to do a CRM in ClickUp. and also a few different ones on automations that might help you here. But if this doesn't answer your question, Joe, I would just go to the YouTube video, Christine's awesome channel, support her channel by leaving a comment, because people don't realize that helps your YouTube channel a lot. Yeah, live chat is great. Permanent comments, better. And leave a comment explaining this a little bit more, Joe, and I'd be happy to like help clarify a little bit. And we can support Christine's channel by giving it some love too.
Yay. And Coco wants to know what the name of the YouTube video you mentioned for Niche was.
I'm trying to remember. What did I mention? I don't know.
It was multiple spaces. If you have multiple spaces, do you set up a view that shows you everything on one screen?
I mentioned YouTube video, which is actually on my channel, which I hope that's not too self-promotional, but but if you go onto my channel, which my name's probably somewhere around this, you'll be able to see, oh yeah, look at that. Here we go. So on this channel, it might even be still on the main page. Let's see if it's still there. Oh no, it's like right here. How I focus in ClickUp. I planned this for you, apparently. So how I focus in ClickUp is right here. That would be the video to watch about personal workflows, because I tell you how I used to work in ClickUp and how I focus now, and it goes over a lot of everything view and prioritization. And that's like my own personal account, so you can kind of get a sense of how that works. I also mentioned scaling up, which I don't know that they have a YouTube channel, but they have a book and they have a lot of excellent content. They're a lot like EOS, slightly different angle, but they're the ones that do a lot with the cross the org chart thinking and a lot of useful frameworks if you get the Scaling Up book or Rockefeller Habits. I hope that helps.
Cool. Yeah. And Joe says, wow, thank you very much. And also Coco says, thanks so much.
Well, they can all thank you by liking this video.
Thumbs up, guys.
Yeah.
Okay, well, Layla, I really, really appreciate you spending time to come hang out with us and teach us how a little sliver of how you are so awesome on ClickUp and operations and everything like that. One more time for those in the back, if they want to learn more about you or your program, what do they need to do?
So you need to comment on this video, because that's a 2-for-1. Help Christine out, help Layla out. Comment on this video, and I will either post the link to it in the response to support Christine, or you can just go to processdriven.co. And that'll tell you all the info about what I do, which is the Clicking Up membership. Again, just like Christine's Go High Level, like the membership that you have, very similar. But my focus is helping you document your process and master ClickUp at the same time, because they go hand in hand. So yeah, that would be the best way to follow and get more good stuff.
Yeah, and I think you post 2 videos a week on your YouTube, right?
I do. And some live with people like Christine, and a lot of them are more tutorial pre-recorded stuff.
Awesome. Awesome. Okay. Well, thank you again so much. And guys, again, if you like this, thumbs up, like, and subscribe. Go subscribe to Layla's channel while you're at it. And stay tuned, because Layla taught me how to do this. So I'm going to be going live a lot more. Actually, next week I have another one. And then the week after that, I'm doing another one. So
ooh, you have to put the link. The link will probably be on the end card eventually, because that's awesome. I'll have to tune in as well. I'm excited.
Yeah. So next week, we're going to be learning how to scale quickly. So that's going to be fun. But anyway, go check out Layla, guys. And again, thank you. And I'm going to go ahead and end the live stream. So we'll see you guys next time. Bye.
Bye all. Don't forget to comment.